Good morning, ladies and gents. Today we're going to pay attention and focus on, for our first close read of the story Earth, a Gift Shop, essential question number 4. What is literary text really about? As well as essential question 5. How does interaction with text provoke thinking and response? As we work today, we're going to close read a section from Earth, a Gift Shop to read for what the text says in our first phase of reading. You're going to be reading through 3 paragraphs from the text to answer the question for what the text says by reading the text and creating an objective summary of each paragraph. As we read through for creating an objective summary of a text, we're focusing on learning target number 5, to create an objective summary of the text. Remember, the objective summary should include the specific evidence or elements of plot that wrap around the central conflict of the piece, and it should be including the beginning, middle, and end of the important information from that section. Please make sure you're only including the facts and staying away from your own personal opinions, and make sure you're not using any direct quotes. It should be fully in your own words. For phase 2 of this reading, we're going to be reading through for how the text says it. As you reread this section of the piece and we read for how the text says it, we're going to be reading through, rereading the text to answer the question, how does the author develop the narrator's point of view in this passage? As you answer this question, I want you to cite specific text evidence to support your response. As you read through for this second phase of reading, we are focusing on learning target number 7 to analyze how an author develops the points of view of different characters, or in this case, the narrator of the text, Earth, the Gift Shop. When we do that, we're looking closely at specific parts or features from the section that the author used to showcase the point of view or perspective of that narrator in this particular text. Remember, point of view can be first person, which is where they use I, or in the plural we. Second person, which is where they're speaking in with you, the word you, directly to that audience. Or third person, which is a narrator outside of the story, telling about the events taking place, either limited to one character's perspective or omniscient, which means they're telling us all characters' perspective using he, she, it, and they. As we read through this second phase, please make sure you begin your response as you answer the question with the following sentence starter. The author develops the first person plural point of view by, and then pick one of these, by including what, by describing what, emphasizing, explaining, or reflecting on what. Remember, as you pick your way of answering this, make sure it's focusing on that narrator's perspective, the way he sees the world around him, his perspective within this moment of the text. Remember, the ellipse, the 3 dots, means that you must finish the sentence off. You don't stop with reflecting on. You should be finishing that sentence off with your response and the finished answer that you thought of that addresses this question. And then after that, you'll follow it with your cited evidence and your analysis. As we complete our cited evidence and analysis for this phase, we're going to be focusing in on learning target number 1 to cite several pieces of text evidence in the form of direct quotes from the text. Remember, you should put quotation marks and put it word for word from the text you cite your evidence. Remember, as we also do this phase, when we give evidence, we also begin by making our inference. We make our claim in the form of this inference, this generalized statement, this idea that we came up with out of our own head from what we noticed in the text. We're going to lead with that claim, follow it with our evidence, and then follow our evidence with our analysis for phase 2. In phase 3, we're going to be reading for why the text matters. As we reread this final time for why the text matters, you're going to focus on the following question. How does the setting affect the character of the passage? And to cite text evidence to support your response. As we reread for how the setting affects the characters, we're looking at analyzing how specific elements of the story interact. In this case, how setting shapes the narrator or the speaker, the main character of this piece. That means you need to look closely at how one part of the text affects the other part of the text. As we look at how a setting affects or impacts the character, in this case, the narrator, please keep in mind that effect or impact should really be a feeling, an emotional feeling that happens to the narrator because of the contribution of the setting. Because that's the case, please begin your answer with the following. And then I want you to specifically think of a couple adjectives to describe that setting. What is the setting specifically? The blank setting So come up with a description of the setting here. Causes the narrator to feel what? How does the narrator feel because of this setting? And then give that feeling right there. And then after that, you're going to finish the sentence off after that ellipse with your reasoning behind why the narrator feels that way. And then, of course, after you answer this or create your claim in this format, you'll follow that with your cited evidence and your analysis. As we do that, we're going to be looking at learning target number 2 to make that claim in the form of an inference. So we're making an inference about how the setting impacts in an emotional feeling way the narrator. So make sure you make a clear claim at the very beginning of your response here. You follow that clear claim with your cited text evidence in the form of a direct quote to support that clear claim that addresses how the setting impacts in an emotional feeling way the character. And then from there, after you give your cited quoted evidence, you follow that with your full sentence analysis, connecting the evidence to your claim, showing how you see specific setting details in your evidence, showing how you see that feeling or emotion in your evidence for the narrator. So go ahead and get working on this close read.